back for a brand new video, and I'm pretty sure it's been a couple of videos since the giveaway. If a couple of these don't know, Matthew McCallum won it. He won the 150 giveaway. So, and this week we're joined by a referee who's travelled all around the world, and his name is Wullie McKnight. What made you get into refereeing?
Thanks Ryan for inviting me to have a wee chat about my refereeing career. I was amazed to discover that I started following South of Scotland football about 50 years ago, and in some respects that's when my refereeing career started, because I discovered when I was following Newton Stewart way back in the early 70s that nobody seemed very keen on being a club linesman for South of Scotland games. Referees were travelling through to Newton Stewart, from Dumfries and Stranraer on their own. They didn't have any assistance with them. So I quickly realised there was a wee job there for me, and I would go on and pick the flag up and just run the line to get throw-ins and when the ball went out of play. It was a good experience for me, but never dreaming where it was all going to lead to. I mean, I remember going to Palmerston way back in the early 70s with Newton Stewart Football Club, and I got the wellies and the leggings on, and away we went to the far side, and I stood there and I looked around the floodlights and all the rest of it, and I thought, my God, imagine doing this for real in a big game at some point. And as it transpired, that's the way my career was going to go. I mean, at that time, my only interest, apart from supporting Newton Stewart, following Newton Stewart, was to play pub league football. And at that stage, as far as I was concerned, that's all I would ever be. Then in 1975, an incident happened to me in the Douglas York gym when I was training with Newton Stewart. I was hit in the face with a football and received an injury to my eye, a detached retina. This transpired that I needed an operation to put this back in place, and I was told there and then that I'd never be able to play football again, because if I headed the ball it would lead to further eye problems. At that time I was approached by Ian Bryden, who was an amateur referee at the time. This was in 1976, start of 1976, and he suggested, if you're not allowed to play, why not try the refereeing? So I duly went to Stranraer, and the class was taken by two great Stranraer men, George Compton and Jim Hamilton. I think it was in the Bucks Head where the course was held, but that's a long time ago now. And that was the start of my career. So from then on it was just one step at a time, never really thinking it would ever lead very far.
What was the first ever game you officiated at?
I remember my first ever game was in, I think it was April 1977. I think a referee had actually called off, and I got a phone call from Frankie Glencross, the match secretary of the Stewartry Amateur League, and it was a game at Gatehouse between Fleet Star and Royal and Douglas Amateurs. I remember being very nervous as I went down, and got myself sorted out and onto the park I went. And to be honest, I thought the game went reasonably well. It finished 4-1 to the Castle Douglas team, but I didn't really have any particular problems. And I remember coming back into the dressing room after the game, and I was met by two great Gatehouse referees men from the past, Hamish Holmes and Jackie Woods. Two great characters that had been in their time. Jackie says to me, "How do you think you did, son?" And I says, "Well, I think it went okay. I didn't really have any problems." And he gave me 1 or 2 pointers about positioning and things like that. And his parting shot to me was that he says, well, I'm not going to say you'll ever make it in the game, but you've enough a good way with the players. You had a good rapport with them throughout the game, and that stood you in good stead. It's never a bad thing. He says, it said something about a sense of humour can sometimes go a long way. So I was quite chuffed with that.
You started off locally. What was your memories from this time?
As you can imagine, my career started in local amateur football. As I say, the Stuart Summer League started in April each year and finished at the end of August. And in my first year, 1977, I think the Sinrar Winter League started that very year as well. So I could referee all year round. As I say, that I refereed that first summer in the Stuart League, and it went quite well. And then I moved into the Sinrar League. I recall going up to places like the Bogue and Bridgebank, Kircombe, New Luce, Dunragget. And all the boys, I seemed to go on okay with the boys. There were no great problems. But in fact, there was some Sundays I did 2 games in a day. I'd maybe be to the Lochans in the morning, 11 o'clock kick-off, and do a game at Bridgebank, and then into the Bogue for a 1:30 kick-off. But I was young and fit in these days, so it wasn't really a problem. The Sinrar Winter League was actually a very strong league. A lot of great players in that league. And there were teams in that league that could have held their own probably in the south. But in general, I got on okay with them all. But from 1977 to 1985, I must have refereed about over 400 games. I think it's about 420 games. Great experience and very important in a refereeing career. During that time, I also ran the line on the Saturday in the South of Scotland League in an official capacity at this stage. And all the referees that I'd met pre-1976, when I had my wellies and leggings on, I was now running the line officially for them. And it was great that I actually had got to know them in previous years. And that gave us a bit of confidence as well. It was during one of these games in the early 80s, I think it's about 83, 84, I was running the line in a game at Stair Park between Sinrar Reserves and Thrieve, and I was in the stand side, and I had quite a busy game. And I remember after the game there was a knock at the referee's dressing room door, and it was a gentleman called Drew Fleming, who happened to be a senior supervisor for up in the Glasgow area. He happened to be down in business and was staying in the Northwest Castle, and he just popped out to watch the game. So, as I say, he came into the dressing room after the game and he spoke to the referee about a couple of things, and he turned to me. I think I was about 28 at the time, something like that. And he turned to me and he says, "You did well the other night, son." He says, "I think you could do a job for us at a higher level." And I think that set the ball rolling for getting supervisions to get promotion to what would be the South of Scotland League, refereeing in the South of Scotland League and running the line in the senior leagues in Scottish football. So this was a lucky break for me, obviously, that Drew happened to be down there in business. I remember Bill Quinn, another great gentleman, very important man in my career, who sadly passed away recently. All respect in the world for Bill. He actually came down to a game at Glen Luce to watch me refereeing. And I think I had about 6 bookings or something in the game, an amateur game, and run-of-the-mill stuff, nothing drastic again. And I remember him coming up to my car at the top of the hill there at Glen Luce up off the park, and he said to me, he says, "I'll let you get yourself sorted out here, and I'll speak to you at the dressing rooms." And I just said, "Well, you better stay where you are, Bill, because this is the dressing rooms." In the whole of my amateur career, I think there's only about 2 teams actually dressing rooms between the Stuart League and the Sinrar Winter League. So Bill was quite surprised at that. But anyway, things moved on, and I got 2 or 3 supervisions, and I got my promotion, as I say, in 1985.
In 1985, you made a step up into the Scottish League. What was your highlights?
So season 1985-86 was a brilliant time for me. The excitement of getting promotion was brilliant. Starting to get away up the road to Glasgow on a regular basis. My first ever game in the Scottish League was Partick Thistle against Montrose at Firhill. Maybe not the biggest game there ever was, but my God, it meant a lot to me. I remember during that game there was an offside situation where an attacker ran in on the Montrose defence, and he appeared to be about 6 yards offside as I saw it. But I knew just at the moment the ball had been played that he was a shade onside, and I let him go. And I was fully expecting everybody to be going daft in Montrose. And funnily enough, the right back of Montrose pointed across and he put his finger in his chest. As much as say that was me, wasn't it? Played him on. And I thought that gave me a lot of confidence. I thought, this is the way this is here. Everybody knows exactly the situation, that it's only when the ball's played, even although it did look ridiculously offside a split second later. That game was in the old First Division, and my first season, you only got first, second and third division games at that time, and you got experience. You weren't thrown into what would be the Premier League nowadays. You had to gain experience and show you could do the job. So at the start of season 86-87, I remember my first game in the Premier League was Falkirk at St Mirren. St Mirren versus Falkirk. Again, the game went fine and no problem at all. I think that was in about September of 86. A month later, my next game came in, St Mirren versus Rangers. Wow, what a game to get at the start of your career. In those days, of course, St Mirren was there was the terracing, etc. I remember being very nervous, but at the time of running out the tunnel, I was firing on all cylinders and raring to go. I couldn't believe that game from the point of view, some of the players that were there had just played in the 1986 World Cup and I've been watching the telly, and here I was now sharing a pitch with them. Players like Terry Butcher, Gary Stevens and Chris Woods and Davy Cooper for Rangers. It was a great experience, one I'll never forget. The following April 87 was a real red letter day for me. This was my first time at the big grounds, first visit to Ibrox. Rangers versus Dundee. I had a gentleman accompanying me up the road called Grandpa John, who I think you know pretty well, Ryan. He made it obvious, or it was clear to me, that he wasn't going up the road to support me in the game. I think he had other interests. Anyway, we were sitting in the dressing room at Ibrox prior to that game, and I'd asked John on the way up, actually, what he thought the crowd would be. And he thought about 28,000 or something. It was an April evening, and he thought about 28,000. So at about 7:20, as I say, sitting in the dressing room, adrenaline flowing, buzzing, raring to go, when the policeman came to the referee's dressing room and said, "You'll have to delay the kick-off. We're going to have a full house here tonight, 42,000. Because the corners weren't filled in at Ibrox at that time. So that was when I discovered that adrenaline was brown. But anyway, we did it in 20 minutes, in the first half of the game anyway. Dundee had the ball in the net, but I disallowed it for offside. Well, it was quite a clear-cut one actually, but it was good to get the flag up, and again, gives you confidence that you're doing the job. The whole game seemed to pass in a flash, and I managed to get Mr. Henderson down the road without too much criticism, so I must have done okay. It was a big day for both of us, I think. Other memories, the Scottish League games, I went on to the 2 or 3 Rangers Aberdeen games at the end of the 80s. These were big games. Aberdeen were still post-Fergie, and they certainly never came to Glasgow to admire anybody. They knew they could deal with the situation in Glasgow, so they were hard games to be on. Had to be really focused. But again, these games went pretty well for me and gave me an awful lot of confidence. And I remember at half time and during one of these games, the other linesman said to me he'd been in an Old Firm game in his career, and he said, "Wullie, if you never get an Old Firm game, you're certainly tasting the atmosphere for it here tonight." I think it was a game where Aberdeen had taken the lead with Roy Aitken scoring the goal, so the tension in the stadium was amazing, and you could feel it, so I knew it wasn't a night for a mistake. There was another game later on in my career in the Scottish League where Motherwell played Rangers in the Scottish Cup, and I had a shocker of a game. I knew as I left home that day there was something no right. I was travelling up the road with my pal Derek, and I just felt I wasn't firing on all cylinders. I just wasn't feeling the way I should have done. The adrenaline wasn't flowing the way it normally would. So in I goes into the dressing room, and even then, there just was something not right on the day. You can't explain it, but it was a terrible feeling knowing you were going out there. It was the biggest game of the draw that day, and it wasn't a nice feeling. So out it goes anyway, into the park, snatched at my first offside decision, and that set the tone for the day. I really did have a poor game, and I knew it. I remember after the game, Richard Gough came out in the tea room afterwards. He said, "Well, what you saying today, Kenny Style?" And I said, "Oh no." He says, "Oh well, we didn't worry about it. We're just delighted to still be in the cup because the game finished 2-2." And he says, "We're just pleased to be still in the cup. We got away, we won the day, Kenny Style." So I remember the replay 4 days later at Ibrox, and I was nervous for the start of that one after my performance at Motherwell, but things settled down and I got back on track again. But after that game at Motherwell, of course you've got on the Sunday night I was waiting for the game on the telly, and nervously waiting, I better say, because when you put out a performance like that, you think the cameras will do you here. But incredibly, they highlighted 2 offsides that I actually got right. So I think I owe the match editor a tenner for that one, getting me off the hook. But then of course you get the supervisor's phone call. The supervisor was watching us, and he just said that it was a poor performance and I couldn't do anything else but agree with the man. 100%, it was a bad one. And I knew I wouldn't hate to do something like that again, or I'd be in big trouble. The only nice thing about the phone call for the supervisor was he told me that he was in the director's box, of course, and he says, just as a backhanded compliment, he says the 2 of the directors leaned forward and said to me, "I wonder what's wrong with the wee man today, because it's no like him." That meant a lot to me, because I felt I'd let myself down that day, hoping I'd never do the same again. I went on to officiate at 40 plus games involving Rangers and Celtic, and the thrill of running out in front of 50,000 is absolutely incredible. 40 or 50,000, it really is amazing to get out in that. And there was one game that I had to mention was Kilmarnock versus Celtic, live on Sky. And of course, when the games are live in Sky, there's no hiding place. There's cameras all over the place. And I was very busy. I had a very busy game. It transpired that I had 14 offsides. That game was played on the Sunday night at 6 o'clock. The following night, I was in a reserve game at State Park. And Campbell Money, of course, was the manager of Stranraer at the time. And just about half an hour before kick-off in this reserve game at Stair Park, Campbell Money knocked on the door and he came in and he put his hand out to shake hands with me. And I gone, yeah. He goes, Wullie, you had an excellent game last night. He says, I can tell you had 14 offsides and every one was spot on. And I thought that was great of Campbell to tell me that. And he felt, from a professionalism point of view, he made a comment that it wasn't fair on me to come to Stair Park on a Monday night for a reserve game after the highs of the night before and try and put in a professional performance. But I appreciated Campbell's support very much and compliment. It was very good of him because he didn't need to do that. So there you are, my career in the Scottish League. There are a lot of other highlights as well, but I can only say what a buzz to be involved at that level for, well, 14 seasons it transpired. I was involved in that level. So that was brilliant.
You've represented Scotland in a couple of occasions. What does it feel like to represent your country?
I think when you're involved in professional sport, it doesn't matter what it is or whatever level, to get the opportunity to represent your country is the ultimate accolade. And I was fortunate enough to be able to say I did that on 2 occasions. Firstly in 1987 when I went to Belgium for a game between Lochern and Honved. The referee that time was the late David Syme and Andrew Waddle, who will be familiar names to many. What a brilliant experience. I will never forget wearing the Scottish blazer and stepping off that plane in Belgium. To wear the blazer is out of this world. It's a great feeling, and you know, I did think back to being a boy in the farm at Carsleuth, and you think to yourself, imagine I just couldn't take it in that I was getting the opportunity to represent my country. But stepping off that plane was absolutely brilliant. The game itself went fine. The French supervisor was pleased with us, and I've got the videotape of the whole game. He was sitting in the dressing room waiting for us about half an hour after the final whistle. But that brilliant, great feeling. The next game I had in Europe was in 1998 when I went to, of all places, Azerbaijan in the old southern Russia. Again, to step off that plane wearing the SFA blazer was unforgettable. And the other thing that was unforgettable about that game was the incredible heat. It went to 40 degrees plus during the game. The game again went very well for us, no great problems. One of the players played in that one was Adrian Mutu, who played for the Romanian team called Arges Pitești, who were playing the home team Dynamo Baku. That, of course, Mutu went on to have a great career at Chelsea. So a big name there again to be involved in the game. But I'm claiming to be the second worst linesman to ever have appeared at the stadium in Baku, because the worst one was that useless bugger that gave England their third goal in the 1966 World Cup final. So I try to rate myself as better than him anyway. As I say, that will always be one of the pinnacles of my career. The feeling of wearing that blazer in a foreign country and performing reasonably well. It went very well, in fact. So a great highlight of my career.
You've been involved in some great games over the past few years, but what is your best 1 to 11 players?
Looking back on my career, another great highlight, of course, is when I sit down and think about all the wonderful players that I've shared the pitch with. Some of the names are incredible in world football, and I've often thought about what my strongest 11 would be of all the players that have been in games I've been involved in. So I'll just give you the best 11 I feel. There's a second 11 here, I'll come on to that later, but the best 11 I feel, goalkeeper-wise, Andy Gorham. Great character, Andy Gorham as well, but what a keeper. At right back I've got Gary Stevens. Left back I've got Tom Boyd. In number 4 I've got Stuart McCall. Number 5 Terry Butcher. Number 6 Richard Gough. And then number 7 Graham Souness. Number 8 Paul Gascoigne. Number 9 Davy Cooper. Number 10 Henrik Larsson. And number 11 Brian Laudrup. I'll let you football experts decide yourself what formation these fellas would take, but my God, it's almost like a world 11, and I'm so proud to have shared a pitch with these fellas. But as I was doing it, other names were springing to mind as well, so I've got a second best 11 to see what you make of this. Goalkeeper Jim Leighton, Darius Dovcik, Sergio Perini, Trevor Stephen, Alec McLeish, Willie Miller, Tommy Burns, Paul McStay, Ali McCoist, Michael Owen and Paulo Di Canio. To be able to tell the Grand Wains about all these players that I've shared a pitch with makes me very proud. There's some great characters in there, probably no more so than McCoist, of course. That's the McCoist who near the end of my career, when he was playing with Kilmarnock, we were out warming up prior to the game, and here's his shout, and it was, "Hey Allian, is it no about time you were retired?" So even though I was thinking about it, he was getting the message across to me anyway. So what a man. I just shouted back, "I'm waiting on you," and he said he wouldn't be long till we're finished or something like that. What a man. But I think people would be surprised just how much you can get a bit of rapport going with players, even at that level. And I never had any great confrontations with anybody, but I think these are absolutely wonderful players who, as I say, back to when I was a wee boy, how could you ever dream of being involved in games, a game of football with players of that calibre?
What's the biggest game you've ever been involved in?
When it comes to big games, Ryan, it's the games didn't come any bigger than these Rangers Aberdeen games in the late 80s, early 90s, or the Celtic Aberdeen games. Then these were really big games. They didn't come any bigger than that apart from an Old Firm game. And I'm pleased to say generally these games went well for me, considering I never got an Old Firm game. But these were the biggest, probably most pressured games. But prestige-wise, the biggest game I was ever on was Celtic versus Clydebank in the Scottish Cup semi-final in 1990. The referee for that one was the late great Jim McCluskey. What a superb gentleman and a great man to be on a game with. So laid back, so confident, and what a great man. Just all the time in the world for Jim. Sadly gone. Another big game was more a personal thing for me, was a pre-season friendly between Celtic and Liverpool in 1998. Now, you folk that know me well, Grandpa John for you, will know I was a Celtic man as a boy, a Celtic man growing up and all the rest of it. And Liverpool were my English team. And of course, I'd never ever seen Liverpool playing until, and then to be involved in, actually be involved in the game when I first see them playing live, you couldn't make that up, especially coming from in here in this corner of the country. To get the appointment as linesman at that game was unbelievable, and I will never forget running out the tunnel at Celtic Park that day to the whole stadium, just under 60,000 singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." Wow, a very emotional moment in my career, and that makes it one of the biggest games as far as I'm concerned. Great experience. But I had to, as I say, I was emotional, but I had to get my wits about me, because I had Michael Owen coming my way in the first half and Henrik Larsson for Celtic in the second half. So a busy day, a hectic day, but an unforgettable day all round.
I've heard you tell the story at my grandpa's house, but I want you to tell me it again. What happened on February 97 at Celtic Park?
I suppose the game they get most often asked about is the Celtic Hibs game at Celtic Park in 1997. That was the day Jim Leighton got an eye injury and had to go off and get patched up. Meanwhile, Darren Jackson had put on the goalie's jersey and he went into goal. I'm linesman at the far side that day, and it transpired that the game went 1-1. Darren Jackson lost a goal, and then Jim Leighton reappeared at the dugouts to try and come back on. So Darren Jackson, thinking automatically that Jim Leighton would be coming back on, come walking out the goal and took the goalie's jersey off that he had on and threw it into the Hibs dugout. But when the referee checked Jim Leighton, there was still a trickle of blood from his head injury, and he was sent back up the tunnel to get sorted out. And the referee just turned to come back, running back across the park, and signalled for the game to restart beside me with a throw-in by Jackie McNamara, who just threw the ball to Andreas Thom, who seen the empty goal and put the ball into the net. So hesitantly, I must say, to begin with, checking out the situation, flagging, but we finally had to get the referee to come over, and he said to me, what's wrong? I says, Hibs ain't got a goalkeeper. And the referee says, Darren Jackson's the goalkeeper. I says, no, he's no. He's there in the centre circle with number 10 his back. And mayhem erupted, of course, and the goal had to be disallowed because one of the rules is that a team must have a goalkeeper. So for the next 3 or 4 minutes, it was absolute mayhem. And I've got a wonderful picture in my room here at home with Paul McStay and Tom Boyd confront me, wondering what was wrong with Andreas Thom's goal. And I just said that, well, there has to be a goalkeeper. And I don't think they were aware of that, to be honest with you. But it was the longest 3 or 4 minutes of my life. But it just shows you need to be focused at all times, and even in front of a big crowd like that, in a game like that, strange things like that can happen. It's a thing you would expect to happen in a pub league game maybe, but don't want too many things like that. But at least we got it sorted out, and the correct decision was arrived at the end of the day, so that's all that mattered. Because to be wrong within the laws of the game is obviously totally unacceptable at that level. And so we're just glad we got it sorted out.
Well, Darren Jackson has decided he's the man who'll go in, the man who gave Hibs the lead in this match, the man who put them ahead, will now have the task of keeping them in this game. And there's an anxious manager. John Collins, meanwhile, is waved back onto the field. So he takes his time about things. In fact, the referee had signalled to Jim Leighton on a couple of occasions before his injury that you better speed up at goal kicks and the like. So one would imagine that there'll be a fair bit of time to be added on to this match. Still Hibs lead by 1-0. Every high ball at this will be a danger. And there you see the goalkeeper fumble it. Van Hooijdonk scores. 59 minutes gone and Celtic get the equaliser. And Hibs pay the penalty for the loss of their goalkeeper, and they pay the penalty for not having a goalkeeper on the bench because it was a fairly harmless high ball. Darren Jackson failed to gather it. Andreas Tom then simply knocked it into the path of Pierre van Hooijdonk, and just a matter then of side-footing it into the back of the net. It's Celtic 1, Hibernian 1. They've struggled to get it away. That's McLaughlin. Leighton is down on the track side, and the referee is coming across. But the referee doesn't look happy with matters. Meanwhile, Darren Jackson has removed the goalkeeper's jersey. Well, it really is turning into a strange old afternoon. Well, the referee is restarting the game and there's no goalkeeper. Well, this is quite remarkable. Leighton's on the field. Jackson is running to get the goalkeeper's jersey. This is an absolute farce. And now the referee is running over to the linesman on the far side. Well, really, the official has lost the place here completely. He should just have stopped everything. I mean, we had the remarkable sight there of Darren Jackson running across the field to pick up the jersey, which was lying there, the goalkeeper's jersey. Leighton was actually on the park. Play was going on. There was nobody in the Hibernian goal. It really is. It's turned now from drama to high farce. Well, Jackson has the jersey back on now. We've got two goalkeepers.
Are you still involved with football?
Nowadays, I'm not really involved in the refereeing. I still attend meetings, but generally I'm just a spectator at games. It's 20 years so almost since I retired from the official list, and I enjoy going around just spectating at local games. So, as I say, the game has moved on so much, what with technology, etc. I don't think it'd be for me to give advice to anybody on how to go about refereeing, because it's a totally different game nowadays.
Would you like to be involved in VAR in today's games?
You're asking me about VAR, Ryan. I'm not a fan. I feel the game's spoiled because of the delay with decisions with it. I think instinctive refereeing decisions are probably the way the game should be, but I feel sorry probably for the linesman as much as anything, because I've got a good pal who ran the line in the English Premier League for many years, Andy Halliday. Andy had a superb record of correct decisions without VAR. But I just feel there's another linesman, Darren Cant, and I've seen him being made to look quite ordinary with one or two VAR decisions. And these fellas were right on top of their job. And I just think one wee part of a knee or something like that being offside is knowing the true spirit of the game. I think it's a moving game. I think rugby's okay with things like VAR because it's a stop-start game anyway. But until they can speed it up and get instant decisions, I'm not a big fan.
Do you recommend anyone following your footsteps? If so, what advice would you give them?
As for someone following on in a refereeing career for this area, obviously that's become an awful lot more difficult with the fact that there's no amateur football in the area now. Stranraer League's folded, and the Stuartry Amateur League is folded as well. I think you definitely needed these leagues to gain experience. So it is very difficult to get involved in the game now in this area. But if you're prepared to put the work in and travel down to Dumfries from Stranraer, for meetings, training and games now, because there is a Dumfries Amateur League that would be the only way forward for you. I know even when I was coming through the amateur leagues, I did about 60,000 miles travelling to Dumfries for training and meetings. That was nothing to do with games at the time. So that's the type of commitment you need. But if anybody was really keen, young, that's the other thing about Dad, and young, and you were prepared to put that into it, you'd still get an opportunity. The rewards are tremendous. And I would love somebody to get the opportunity to get out of the game what I got. It was unbelievable.
Have you any funny football stories?
Well, Ryan, you asked me about any funny stories regarding that. There's loads of stories I could tell, but there's only a couple I would like to highlight. The first one is regarding an Old Firm reserve game at Ibrox, and there was over 20,000 at the game. Absolutely incredible. I don't think there's any other country in the world where you get a crowd like that for a reserve game. The game itself went fine. Mr. Wharton was in the stand supervising, and a good report. Everything went grand. Barry Reid for Castle Douglas was the other linesman in that game. We were both happy with the way it went for us, and all in all, a good day out. But just to prove what it's like to be a referee, you're never safe for criticism, because the following week after that game, Hugh Dallas and Graham Allison, my pal for Dumfries, were on a flight down to London for Glasgow to get on their way out to a European game. And they were approached by a gentleman on the plane who happened to be the groundsman for Ibrox. And he came up to Hugh Dallas and he says, "You ken Wullie McKnight from Newton Stewart?" And Hugh says, "Aye." He says, "But there's a man there kens him better, point to Graham." He says, "Well, tell him for me, the next time he's here at Ibrox for a game, tell him to keep off my touchline, because during that Old Firm reserve game, I had the white line was about a foot wide because I've been running on it. So I suppose I can claim that I actually played in a reserve Old Firm game." But probably the funniest story of the lot for my refereeing career was a game at Kirkcowan, again late 90s, Tart Rovers versus Thieves Rovers, I think it was. And I remember the night, it was an April night at the end of the season, and son Gary and Derek Stocks, my linesman, I picked him up in Newton Stewart as well, and Gary and him and I set off for Kirkcowan. So we got to Kirkcowan, fine, everything going into the dressing room. Gary went away, I think he was about 9-year-old or something, he went away and played with his pals that he knew at Kirkcowan in the Pippa pitch. So that was fine. The game was absolute bedlam. I'd never seen a game like it. God, I was working hard. It was the most difficult games I ever refereed. I think I finished up with about 7 yellow, 3 red. Coaches reported, you name it. I think everything under the sun was happening. So anyway, we got our paperwork sorted out in the dressing room after the game, and I says to Derek, I says, where did I gone wrong? What, should I have been in quicker with red cards? I just wasn't happy the way things had gone. So all the way home to Newton Stewart, for Kirkcowan, I'm analysing it, and I say to Derek, "Oh jeez, I'll let you think about this game again, can I hear off like that again?" So in I goes, drove up to the house here at home, and I come in and I threw my bag down behind the couch in the living room, and Jill, my wife, was sitting there, and I says to Jill, I says, "Oh, it's bloody ridiculous tonight, God almighty, 7 yellow, 3 red, absolute bedlam at the end of the game. It would make you want to pack in." And she looked at me and she goes, "And where's Gary?" I left the boy at Ball Green, Kirkcona. I didn't even bring him home with me. So if I thought the abuse had been bad at the game, you should have heard what I got when I was home here. Gary was safely returned to us an hour later So when his pals dad brought him back. So it just shows you what can happen if you're totally focused on the game.
I enjoyed reading your book, Life's a Pitch. Did you enjoy writing it?
Well, Ryan, my book, Life's a Pitch, has done absolutely brilliantly sales-wise. I did enjoy putting it together. I've tried to highlight that there's a lot of humour in refereeing, and it's no all bad news and taking stick and all the rest of it. There is a lot of lighter moments, and I tried to show the human side of refereeing, like how no matter how hard you try, some days things will just not go your way. A lot of good pictures in it as well, so I feel it's been a very worthwhile thing, considering it's the 20th anniversary almost of when I finished in the official list. But it's done very well, and I've got plenty left if anybody's interested in purchasing a copy. Cheers.
Thanks, Wullie, for this week's interview. I really appreciate it. I hope to get a catch up with you at my grandpa's soon and tell Gary that I was asking for him. And anyone who's watching this, the Life's a Pitch is still available. I recommend buying it to read his story, and if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe so we can get the next giveaway going soon. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, goodbye.